My name is Kylan Moore. Compton, California is where I was born and raised. I'm a student at the University of Oxford in England. I don't know, there might be one in Mississippi as well, but the one in England. I played college football at Texas Christian University in my younger days, just 2 years ago, and I'm extremely honored and privileged to talk to a crowd like this. I say this humbly, but I've been able to speak on ESPN. I've been able to speak at many different venues, many different universities all across the United States. I've even spoken internationally in my second language, Spanish, recently in Paraguay and Argentina. But I must say that this is actually one of the most important speaking engagements that I've ever had in my entire life. Because I'll tell you exactly why in a second. But I was in a middle school not too long ago in Fort Worth, Texas. And when I walked into the middle school, I walked past the metal detector cop. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. And when I was walking into the school, I talked to a young man, and I was talking about college. I said, young man, do you see yourself, going to college one day? I see big things in you. And he said, college, that's not really for me. I said, why is that, young man? He said, my reading scores aren't what they need to be. I don't read too well. I said, listen, young man, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the person that didn't put a book in your hand last summer and the person that won't put a book in your hand this summer. I was talking to another young man, he was in the crowd, and we started talking in between the speaking session. And I started telling him, hey, if you want to go to college, make sure you sign up for the SAT prep program in your local community. And he said, I can't really do the SAT prep. I said, why is that? He said, moms don't have the money. I'm from Compton, California. I understand what it is when moms doesn't have the money. But when he said that, it made me take a step back. And in taking a step back, I noticed his shoes. He had on the new 11s. So I asked him a question. I said, how much did that SAT prep program cost? He said, the program, it was like $125. I said, is that right? I said, how much did those new J's cost? He said, $200. I said, who got you those? He said, my mom. I said, I'm mad. He's walking around in this SAT prep. He walked to school in his SAT prep. Somebody invested more in his looks than they did in his education. I'm mad. I was talking, it was another young man, he was in the crowd and he was playing around. He was in the back row slap boxing with somebody. And I said, come up here, man. And he came up to the crowd. And I said, I came here to talk about college today. You must be an expert about college since you're in the crowd playing around. I said, why don't you take the mic and teach everybody how to get to college? And I stepped to the side. And he said, I don't really know how to go to college. I said, you don't have any tips or tricks or, a pathway to help people get to college? You don't know anything about how to get to college? He said, nah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how to get to college. I said, sit down, young man. I'm here speaking at this school. We right by the Nickerson Gardens projects, the largest housing projects west of the Mississippi River on South Central Avenue in Watts, Los Angeles. And I'm talking to the young man. And I said, I'm here because I love you and I see great things in you. But young man, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at your barber. And it's not because your hairline look like the I-20. I'm mad at your barber because you sit in that seat every 2 weeks, pay that man $15, and he has not deposited the information into your brain on how to get to college. I'm mad at your barber. And I want to say today, this is the most important speaking engagement that I've ever had in my life, because I have people that in this room right here, I have people that are telling young men and young women what I wish that people would have told this young man. Someone did this young man a disservice. So I want to say thank you. That the mere fact that we have people like that in this crowd, it encourages me. Because it makes me think back to my middle school years when I was in 6th grade and I had all F's. I'll explain why. So I remember in 6th grade, the logistics of me bringing a backpack to school didn't make sense in my 11-year-old head. Because when you have to catch the 205 bus all the way 12 miles to get to school, and you're going through a Crip neighborhood, a Blood neighborhood, a Crip neighborhood, MS-13 neighborhood, a Crip neighborhood, a Blood neighborhood, the backpack, in my head, I only saw that as a nuisance that would weigh me down if I had to jump the fence, if I had to run, or if I had to fight. The backpack thing didn't make sense for me at that particular junction. But I had a teacher. Teachers like the people that are in this crowd. I had a Miss Walters in my life. And I know I'm looking out to a bunch of Mr. Walters and Mrs. Walters in this crowd today. And I had somebody that looked at me and said, you're not a gang member. You're not going to be dead. You're not going to be in jail. You're not going to be a deadbeat dad. I see great things in you, young man. And it was at that particular time that someone outside of my own family saw something in me that made me see something in myself that I had never seen before. And that's the opportunity that everybody under the sound of my voice has, to unlock the potential in these student athletes, to unlock the potential in the people that are around them. I'm so humbled and so honored that I'm sitting in the room and people were talking about black student athletes. It's amazing. It's one of the greatest things that I've seen yet out of all the things that I've done. So a little bit about myself. Grew up, born and raised in Compton, California. What is Compton? I remember coming home from school with questions from my mom. I had questions. Not why is the sky blue? Not why is the grass green? As a kindergartner, I came home and I said, Mom, what's a crib? Mom, what's the blood? Mom, why is there blood that stains the sidewalk by my elementary school? I remember in my neighborhood, we played a game called Bullets. When we were walking home from school, we would see who out of me, my younger brother Chase, and my cousin Lauren, we would see who could collect the most bullets off the ground by the time we got home, and we sat in the garage and we played marbles with them. I remember, I'm going to use a little bit of terminology. It's going to be like 3 or 4 people that are going to be familiar with it. But there were times when I was growing up that I had to go outside, fill up a bucket of water, bring it back in the house, microwave some of the water, and then take a bucket bath. I know somebody, I see some heads nodding. There were some times in my life where I can remember going into grandma's house or going into auntie's house, and she would say, baby, I'm sorry, we don't have enough room on the couch. We don't have enough room on the bed. Baby, you're going to have to make a pallet. Like I had uncles that knew, I'm going to use some terminology, some jargon, if you will. I had some uncles that knew how to flip a nick to a dime and an eighth to an O. This is the environment that I was growing up in, to where I shared a bed with my mom, my brother, and my sister until I was in 8th grade. And during the nighttime when I was asleep, I easily learned how to sleep through hearing those gunshots at nighttime. But I never got my ear attuned to the sound of those rats and those roaches moving things under the bed late at night. In the environment that I was living in, I had to grow up very early. When I was in the 3rd grade, my mom went in for open heart surgery. She was diagnosed with a tumor on one of the chambers of her heart. By the grace of God, the surgery was successful. While my mom was recovering from open heart surgery, she was raped by one of the workers at the hospital. This put my mom in a state of depression where she was recovering psychologically from everything that she had went through and recovering physiologically from open heart surgery, to where she was relegated to a couch for months at a time. I had to grow up. I remember during this time period, if you were to ask my younger brother Chase is a defensive back, number 37 on the Texas Longhorn football team here. And if you were to ask my younger brother Chase, how did you learn how to read? My older brother Kai taught me. Chase, how did you learn how to tie your shoes? My older brother Kai taught me. Chase, how did you learn how to do mathematics? My older brother Kai taught me. Chase, how did you learn how to ride your bicycle? My older brother Kai taught me. I had to grow up. I can remember during this same time period, I used to collect cans and bottles out of the trash can early in the morning. And then I would drive down to ride the bus down to the recycling center and use that money that I got from the recycling center and bring it back to the house to buy groceries. It seemed like my world was crumbling when I was a youth. It seems like the skies were falling, and as my friend said earlier, when it rained, it poured. Because when I was in high school, I started making a name for myself in football. Things looked like they were going up. I remember during that time period, I always tried to turn my negatives into a positive. The times that my mom would come home and say, baby, I'm sorry to tell you, but I can't afford to feed your brother. I'm sorry, I can't afford to feed you today. I have to feed your brother and I have to feed your sister. So instead of complaining about the lack of food that day, I would just drop down on the floor and do push-ups to take the pain from my stomach and put it into my arms. I convinced myself those pains one day will no longer be there when I'm in college. So I remember one day I'm on my high school football field and I'm playing, I'm practicing, we're getting ready for a game. And the police officers come onto the field and they say, can we have a Kaylin Moore? My name is pronounced Kylan. They said, can we have a Kaylin Moore that's here? I come out so confused. I'm thinking all the candy that I stole from that Rite Aid in middle school is starting to catch up with me. I'm wondering, like, how did they figure that out? Like, I'm confused. And now, before you know it, the cops take me away, and I'm in the car. They take me to my home. There were helicopters hovering above my house, shotguns everywhere, police officers everywhere. They were looking for my father, who had just committed a murder. My father right now is in prison for life for murder in Kiyosaki, California. So I wanted to tell you a brief history of my life up to this point. But I want to teach you guys, and especially to my student athletes, I want to teach you guys how I bridge the gap from sleeping on the floor to being a student at the University of Oxford. My message is very, very simple. You have to dream dreams that are too big. You have to dream dreams that are so big, so unimaginable, so unfathomable, so unrealistic that they are destined to fail without divine intervention. For example, you see me up here talking in this tuxedo. 3 years from this exact day, I had a broom and I had a mop in my hand. A mop and a bucket. I was a janitor 3 years from this exact day. I went out, before I went to Texas Christian University, I went to a small Division I AA school. I played quarterback, I was making a name for myself, but my identity was so tied to football that when I injured my back and they told me I wouldn't be able to play again, it hit me like a whirlwind. It knocked the wind out of my stomach. I was crushed. But one day I heard a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, which I'll reveal to you in a second, and it changed my entire perspective. So I heard that quote and I started to write down dreams that were too big. And I wrote on a piece of paper and put it in my dormitory room on the ceiling. It said Division I football player and Harvard PhD. Why? Because at that time, I was neither of those two things. I told myself Harvard PhD on that piece of paper because I went to elementary school that had dictionaries that were so antiquated that they didn't have the word computer in it. I went to an elementary school where it was normal for those candlelight visuals and those red solos to be sitting right outside of the kindergarten yard at my elementary school. So I told myself, if I set a goal to get a Harvard PhD, at that time I didn't even know what a PhD was, to be honest. If I set a goal like this, I guarantee this will inspire a young man like myself from my community in Compton, California. Division I football player. I wrote down that goal. It had nothing to do with making it to the league. I told myself I would not stop playing football until my father could see me play on TV from the prison that he's at in Kiyosaki, California. It had nothing to do with making it to the league. My mindset was different. So I convinced myself, okay, I'll need some revenue to be able to buy a plane ticket so I can make these dreams happen. I'm a little crazy. So I got a job as a janitor on the exact same campus that I was at. So every day I'm mopping and I'm sweeping and I'm so humble. At first, the same people that were cool with me, now they're kind of looking down on me. The people that used to think I was a good athlete, now they think I'm a worthless individual as a human. Because now I can no longer produce results on the field anymore. I was humble. And I used to mop and I would sweep with a hoodie on. And I was so depressed and so discouraged at this particular time. And then one day, my life was changed when I heard this quote. There was a young man that was walking past me. And this is a young man that in my community, we would describe him as extra. I'm certain we know some people that will fit the exact same description. And he was walking past me. And he looked at me and I looked at him. I kept mopping, I kept sweeping. And he said, "You missed the spot." I looked at him, I said, "Where?" And then he spit on the floor. I don't know if I just explained it, but I come from Compton. I won't go any further on that. But I was standing there and I was having an internal battle, if you can imagine. And I was standing there for a second. But that quote got into my mind. It was itching my brain. So he walked past. I said, "Hey, bro, come back." He started walking back towards me. I turned to face him. I said, "Tell you what, bro, where are you about to go right now?" He said, "I'm going to the cab, somewhere you can't go because you're a janitor." I said, "Is that right?" Tell you what, when you go to that cab, tell them to put that food into your hands. Then bring that food from your hands, bring it back out here, put it on this floor, and eat it off this floor. That's how clean this floor is going to be when you get back. I shook his hand and said, "Have a nice day." I heard a quote that day. Dr. Martin Luther King. It said, "If it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted. Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote plays. Sweep streets so well that when you die, may all the hosts of heaven and earth look upon your grave and say, there lived a street sweeper who did his job well. I changed my entire mindset on that day. I told myself, if I'm going to be a janitor, I'll be the best dang janitor that ever lived. If anybody comes past this spot on Mayor's College campus, they're going to know Kylan Lewis Moore must have been there because it's spotless. And thank you. And that's the type of mindset that I started applying to every single thing that I did. That's the small bit of knowledge and the wisdom that I have to impart to the youth that are here today, and also to the athletic administrators and advisors and faculty. It's to do every single thing I do to the best of my ability. Just like Michelangelo painted and all these things. But I can't help but to reflect back on the statement the young man said. Can anybody remember what he said? He said, I missed the spot. But I just left my hotel room, and while walking out of my hotel room, I looked at my passport. I need a new passport. I'm running out of pages. I just came back from Argentina. I just came back from Argentina 2 days ago. 2 days from now, I'll be flying out to England. But he said, I missed the spot. I'm thinking about the fact that I'm married to a beautiful woman that is a hammer thrower, a student athlete herself, and will be representing her country in the Olympics from Paraguay. But he said, I missed the spot. I started thinking about the fact that I was able to study abroad while being a student athlete, and I went to the University of Bristol on the Fulbright Summer Institute Scholarship Program. But I missed the spot. I'm thinking about the fact that right now I'm writing a book, and my literary agent that represents me is the same one that represents President Obama. But I missed the spot. I'm thinking about the fact that I graduated with a cumulative 3.9 GPA, but I missed the spot. I'm thinking about the fact that my father was able to see me on TV playing football, but I missed the spot. I'm thinking about the fact that I was able to go and study at Princeton University while being a student athlete at the Woodrow Wilson School of Public Policy, but I missed the spot. I'm thinking about the fact that I'm now, maybe I wasn't a scholarship athlete undergraduate, but I'm a scholarship student now at the University of Oxford on a full ride Rhodes Scholarship, but I missed the spot. I got the spot. I got the spot. And I want to encourage everybody under the sound of my weak voice that you can get that spot too by one simple thing. You must dream dreams that are so big, so unrealistic, so unimaginable, so unfathomable that without divine intervention, they are destined to fail. You have to dream dreams too big. Thank you.